The first sitting of the Tobago House of Assembly 2013-2017 session took place in the Assembly Chamber at Gillingham Street, where initiatives were put forward to further uphold the democratic process in Tobago.
We felt that we got to send a signal that not because you did not win, that you're out of the process. And therefore, I would have met with Dr. Vanus James of the MDD, who, although they did not participate, but have to be considered part of the decision-making process. And I also met with Mr. T.H.A, leader of the TPT, which contested the election and was not successful. And I want to make it very clear, Mr. Presiding Officer, that this was not a recruitment exercise. I have no desire of attempting to recruit either of these gentlemen. And I do not believe either of these gentlemen wishes to be recruited to the People's National Movement. But the important thing is that all of us are involved in the development of Tobago. The election is over. They have contributions to make. They have experience, they have expertise. They can add to the conversation. They can bring value and they can enrich the decision-making process. And therefore, we felt that we had a responsibility to reach out to them. Unfortunately for Tobago, they were willing to collaborate in the process. And therefore, we had an opportunity to share the views and to share the experiences. And I will tell you that I derive benefit from those experiences and those conversations. For example, we will come to discuss one of the ways in which we democratize the process by involving groups and so on. And that was a discussion that I would have had with Dr. James. And even in relationship, and I must give him the credit, even in relationship to the meeting with the Prime Minister, if you remember, one of the issues we were discussing had to do with the Act, Tobago House of Assembly Act, and the whole question of internal self-government. And the proposal that I would have put forward is one where that whole process in the Parliament should be aborted. And a technical team from the Tobago House of Assembly should meet with a technical team from the central government. That was my original position. In discussion with Mr. Charles, however, he reminded me of the situation when Trinidad and Tobago was seeking independence. And he reminded me, and I had to take cognizance, that they didn't send technocrats. The politicians went, the representatives went, and of course, the technocrats were there to provide information and to provide advice on specific matters. And therefore, I have accepted that proposal. And what I'm going to put to the Prime Minister is, in fact, a proposal that says we will be represented, Tobago will be represented, and the technocrats will accompany the politicians who will be the decision makers and ask her to do the same thing. And I just want to put the Tobago on notice that I intend to invite members or representatives of political parties outside of the PNM to be part of that process. Just as how Eric Williams would have carried or invited along Regional Capildio and the members, I think, then the DLP, because it was Trinidad and Tobago, the country, not the PNM, Trinidad and Tobago, the country that was going to get to fight for independence. In the same way, when we go to fight for internal self-government, it will not just be the PNM, but Tobago that is going down to fight for internal self-government. I'm saying, Mr. Presiding Officer, that we are prepared to walk the talk. And following that, after making overtures to the politicians, we then started treating with the interest groups. And I had a very cordial, very informative, very productive meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. We met at my office earlier this week, and I was very heartened by the level of enthusiasm which emanated from them when they recognized that we have a situation where they will have an opportunity to be involved in that process. And I want to give you the assurance, Mr. Presiding Officer, that over the next couple of weeks, I will try to arrange meetings with other organizations, the churches, unions, trade unions, youth, women, civil society, community organizations, so that they can in fact be challenged to be part of the governance process. I am saying, Mr. Presiding Officer, that we on this side are operating on the principle that people have to be given the opportunity to be part of the governance process. But with opportunity will go responsibility, so that they will be given the opportunity to be part of the process, but they must take responsibility for contributing and participating so that the process will redound to the benefit of the people of Tobago. And that is where we are at this point in time with respect to that. Now, what are some of the specific strategies? We are experiencing one here now. We have made a decision that from here on in, all assembly sittings will be disseminated live. So that I think as we speak, the public of Tobago is seeing the assembly at work. The public will have an opportunity, therefore, to get first-hand information as to what the assembly is doing, why the assembly is doing it, and to draw their own conclusions as to how well the assembly is doing it. So that we're going to start on Channel 5, and once the technical aspects are completed, we will move on we switch to Channel 4. But what we commit to is all sittings will in fact go live, and the public will have an opportunity to view it. We also propose to start from March monthly Meet the People session. The title might change, but basically the principle is there, and the objective is that we will go to different electoral districts, a separate electoral district every week, every month. And at that session, which hopefully we also be able to carry live, we will discuss the issues related to that electoral district and the issues related to one division. So for example, if we go to Canaan-Bonaccord, we'll discuss the issues related to the geographical district of Canaan-Bonaccord and the issue, let's say, related to health and social services. And we go to Goodwood Bell Garden West, we deal with Goodwood Bell Garden West, and maybe with education, youth affairs, and sport. So the whole idea is that we will be consistently reporting to the people in a predictable manner, and that will go on for the entire life of this assembly. So over the period of 4 years, we should at least be visiting each electoral district 3 or 4 times, and people will have 3 or 4 opportunities to relate to the situation involving a particular division. And then we will be setting up what I call a public interest desk, where concerns, recommendations, and questions will be submitted by email, by letter, by conversation, so that we will have an idea of the issues which people have raised, and people will know about the issues which they have raised with us. And at the end of that, the secretaries and assistant secretaries will respond. The primary way that they will respond is through statements in the House, so that at every sitting we will have a number of secretaries making statements in the House in direct response to the concerns and questions raised. And of course, the normal methods through press releases, press conferences, direct communication. So that basically is another way by which the public can participate in the process. And then we will have what I call a Tobago interest group. And you know, I had public interest desk, and I went to call this public interest group, but the acronym would have created a little problem, so I called it the Tobago interest group. This interest group is going to be comprised of representatives from major sectors, some of those sectors with which I'm hoping to meet over the next couple of weeks. Business, church, youth, women, civil society. And the whole objective, and it's not something that's going to be unique to Tobago, I think it has been tried in a couple other countries, where this group meets with the assembly at regular intervals, once every 2 months, once a month, once every 3 months, whatever we can decide. And they discuss Tobago business. They don't just discuss the business associated with their own particular group. They discuss Tobago's business, and we get feedback, and we get discussion. We might quarrel sometimes, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that you have a regular forum where these interest groups can, in fact, participate in the process. I'm also considering having the press in that meeting as representatives of the press. Because all of us, and we go back, Mr. Presiding Officer, to the theme of responsibility. I am saying in this dispensation, no group should confine itself only to the interests of that particular group. The interests of the people of Tobago must take priority over the interests of any particular group or any particular sector. It's the only way that this thing can work. Because, again, I'm saying with increased authority, with increased involvement, must also go increased responsibility. And that is the point that we're trying to make. And that is the message I want to send out there. And then, of course, we will be meeting at the level of the secretaries, at the level of the Office of the Chief Secretary, with various interest groups on a regular basis in their own right, so that we can meet with the churches 1 week, and then maybe have meetings with the churches maybe every 6 months, because they have a contribution to make. There are things that they can do, and they can do better than any one of us in this room, and they have to take on that responsibility. There are things that credit unions can do. Credit unions have got to see themselves as participating in the process, as helping to nurture the entrepreneurial class in Tobago, as becoming more aggressive in their financial transactions, of responding to the needs of the people of Tobago. But we have no problem about working with credit unions. We have access to land, and we have no problem in working out with credit unions, with trade unions, with community organization, ways and means by which we could partner in providing housing to the people of Tobago and so on. So I'm saying that I am not expecting that these meetings are going to be meetings where you just ask questions and give criticism. You are participating in the process in a meaningful manner. And Mr. Presiding Officer, that is what the Assembly as a group will do. But we're also talking about the role of the assemblymen and the role of the councillors. And I'm not mama-guying them, Mr. Presiding Officer. But I am very comfortable with this team. There's a team of individuals. Look around them. Check them. Yeah, tap yourself. There's a team of individuals who have, in effect, set out their track record, and they didn't come to this place in order to serve. They came to this place because they have served, and they have the capacity to serve and the commitment to serve. And that is why the other aspect of this communication is an aspect over which, I have absolutely no problem. And that is what the assemblymen have to do in their particular area. In other words, assemblymen and with assistance with the councillors have committed committed to a situation where they are going to be meeting, having regular meetings with the individuals and the groups in the area. They're going to be doing a lot more walkabouts and so on, and really developing a relationship with the communities and with the individuals and the groups in the communities that will give these people the confidence, Madam Presiding Officer, that they are in fact a meaningful part of the process. We understand that we are going down a road which has not been traveled very much by very many people, and therefore there are likely to be pitfalls. We accept that. We accept that there would be the naysayers, that there will be people who will get a little bit nervous, that even within our own ranks, our own political ranks, there will be people who feel we're going too far, or maybe we're not going fast enough. But I'm saying that what I want the people of Tobago to understand and to accept and to give us the benefit that we are genuinely committed to this process and that we are looking for them to provide advice, to provide guidance, to provide criticism, to provide recommendations, because at the end of the day, it is our process. You see, you've got to ask ourselves, why are we doing all of this? And I want to suggest to you, we're doing all of this to prove ourselves right. And I want to point, Mr. Presiding Officer, in the minutes remaining, to some of the areas and some of the objectives that have to be achieved. Priority number one, from a perspective of, or maybe the most urgent of the priorities, let me put it like that, has to be the question of internal self-government. That has to be addressed, that has to be resolved, and it has to come to some finality in this term, preferably in the very early stages, and I would say the very early months of this term. And I'll tell you the position that we want to put out there, Mr. Presiding Officer. We have a situation where all the major decision makers are on a record as saying Tobago deserves and Tobago should get a form of internal self-government that is in sync with the wishes and the desires of the people of Tobago. So we've determined the what. The question is the how. And as far as I'm concerned, the how has to do with some technicalities, some legal niceties and so on, which people of goodwill can work out together. And I'm saying what we are trying to do, and that is why one of the discussions we'll have, and we want to put a proposal to the Prime Minister, is to find an environment where people of goodwill can work together and you come to some conclusion. That is why this administration was adamant. This administration was adamant that this discussion could not and should not take place in a pre-election period, or during an election period, sorry. Because that environment was too volatile, it was too polarizing to allow for the kind of mature deliberation and the kind of calculated evaluation necessary for us to come to the right conclusion. I am saying the election is over. We have 4 years, they have 2.5, right? We must recognize that even if we have 4 years and counting, and they have 2.5 years, we could work together. And that is the point that I am making. And I'm saying that the overtures we're getting from the Prime Minister is giving us some comfort that maybe we could get something done. And we are hoping that we can seize the time. Because, Mr. Presiding Officer, if we miss it this round, I am saying it might be another generation before we can come to any conclusion.
Assemblyman Ansel Dennis, Hilton Sandy and Deputy Chief Secretary Tracy Davidson Celestin all stood in support of the motion.
I believe that this administration has always focused on democracy, and we understand that it is essential to have democracy as part of our governance structure. And so in everything that we have been doing in this administration, It was about encouraging the participation of the people, whether it be in the communities or otherwise. And so we have been always in consultation with our different charges in the constituencies and also at the stakeholder levels. One of the measures of good governance, to me, is voice and accountability. And you heard quite a lot today on ensuring that the voices of the people are involved in our discussion. And also, I must include the measure of accountability, because here we are saying that we're not only talking to the people, we're not only encouraging the people to give their views, to give their opinions, to critique us, but we also want to be answerable to the people in this whole process of governance. Now, I am in no way saying that this is a new approach for this administration, because in my earlier submissions, I did mention that we have always been in consultation with the people. And so, in my humble view, in the absence of a formalized approach to opposition, we must find creative ways and means to intensify our interactions with the public, and that is what we are doing in this particular scenario. And so, I stand to support the motion, Mr. Presiding Officer, and of course the different strategies that have been outlined by the Chief Secretary for a number of different reasons. Because to me, I think those reasons, those strategies, those initiatives allow for us as a people to think together. They also create a situation of shared perception of events that help us to get more out of the situation, to get more of what we want from the particular event, and more so, those strategies that have been outlined by the Chief Secretary ensure that there is mutual understanding and harmony. And we have always spoken about making sure that Tobagonians walk side by side with us. And for that to happen, we must always ensure that they are informed. We must always ensure that there is mutual understanding, and more so that there is harmony in our approaches. And so all the strategies that would have been mentioned by the Chief Secretary in his submissions are strategies that I stand in support of.
Leader of Assembly Business, Claudia Groome also threw her support behind the motion.
I have no doubt that the strategies undertaken by this administration will lead to more harmonious, productive, and meaningful relationships between the Tobago House of Assembly and civil society, as well as between the Tobago House of Assembly and the central government. And so whatever progress we make at this assembly is progress for Tobago and progress for Trinidad and Tobago as a whole. And the strategies and initiatives identified by the representative for Scarborough, Calder Hall, will become the driving chains for a dynamic Tobago. And Mr. Presiding Officer, in order for Tobago to maintain its dynamism and its vitality, we must continue to be performance-driven, which will move the island forward, and I am confident that civil society holds the key to that change. Mr. Presiding Officer, a useful starting point for a discussion on governance is to make a clear distinction between governance and government. And this is important because while every citizen may not have an opportunity to participate in government, they should all have an opportunity to participate in the governance of our society. And so the strategies and initiatives identified by the representative for Scarborough Calder Hall will let every voice be heard here in Tobago. And this is significant and important for this new direction. Mr. Presiding Officer, this distinction between governance and government becomes more important when we contrast the traditional approaches with this emergence of new governance structure by our visionary leader, the Chief Secretary, the Honourable ORVILLE London. Look at the public interest desk, the Tobago interest group, the Tobago Productivity Council, the public relations and deepening relationship with the media and social media, to reach out to the people. Every individual in every community will be part of this process, and reaching out not only to every community, but also to our Prime Minister, to the Cabinet, and to the Parliament. Mr. Presiding Officer, we support this significant new approach.
I want to ask the people of Tobago to understand the role that they have to play, to understand that we do not intend to walk this road alone, that we do not even intend to lead. We intend to walk hand in hand with the people of Tobago along this road. And therefore, there has to be, just as how there has been introspection among the members of this team to allow us to come up with these recommendations, and we will continue looking and reviewing and so on. In the same way that those couple persons would have called in to make recommendations and to make suggestions, I'm saying that the people of Tobago must also take on that responsibility. Until such time as the desk is set up, I am asking people to send their recommendations to the office email, chesec@tstt.net.tt, chesec@tstt.net.tt, or call 639-3688. This is a subsidiary line where we'll ask the secretary there to be prepared to take these calls until such time as we set up the desk. I also want to just reiterate my appeal for us to be understanding and to realize that there are going to be mistakes made, that there are going to be times when you're going to get frustrated, that this is not a panacea for the ills facing Tobago at this point in time. This is only the introduction of a process that will allow us, hopefully, to deal more effectively with the challenges and create a mindset where we be able to take better advantage of the opportunities available. That is all that it is. Tobagonians are saying we are not prepared to be spectators in our own place. We want to be participants. We want to be more aggressive. We want to be more assertive. We want to be more prepared, because we have no intention of being overwhelmed in our own land. The point I want to make is that we don't want that involvement, that participatory kind of mode to end at this point in time. People must not go back in their shell and say, well, okay, let them fellas take over. And I want to tell everybody around here that there could be a little bit of self-interest involved. Because you see, if people are involved in the decision-making process, as I said earlier, they take responsibility for the outcomes, whether the outcomes are negative or positive. If they don't, however, you run the risk of people getting into a victimhood mode where they don't get involved. Things are happening to me. So if things happen and they're all right, I accept. I don't even appreciate, I just accept. And if things are a little bit rough, then I lash out at whoever is the person who I believe should be blamed. We want to develop a more involved kind of Tobagonian. And as I said, based on what happened and that month before election, I think Tobagonians are ready for that role.
In the end, all members of the House voted in favor of the motion.
Members, the question is, whereas the recently concluded Tobago House of Assembly election has produced a result that does not include the opportunity for a minority presence in the Assembly, and whereas, despite the absence of any opposition voice in the House, this administration remains committed to the further enhancement of the democratic process in Tobago, be it resolved that this House endorse the strategies and initiatives proposed by the Executive Council for the further enhancement of the democratic process in Tobago. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Clearly, the ayes have it. The motion is therefore carried.
You have just seen the first sitting of the Tobago House of Assembly 2013 to 2017 session. Thank you for joining us. For the Department of Information, I am Sophie Guillaume.